A classic trap commander players fall into is they design their commander decks in a way where doing the thing, or executing their theme, is equivalent to winning. Oh, my commander deck is going to go wide and overrun for lethal. My commander deck is going to dig for this combo. My commander deck wants to equip everything to my commander and swing out for lethal commander damage. And the problem is, if your deck's thing is winning the game, your opponents must stop you from doing that, otherwise they lose. This means, in games that you lose, your deck will never do its thing. I've talked about this before a few times, and in the past, I've suggested separating out your win cons from your theme. This way you can execute your game plan without forcing your opponents to prevent you from doing that. But I wanted to expand on this idea a little bit more and talk about some problems with that solution, and how you can actually do your thing and win with it in Commander. This is the secret to satisfying games. First, the secret to cool MTG gear. Void Monster is back with another drop. This is the Red Collection, and it comes with a deck box, playmat, sleeves, plus a binder for your cards. Void Monster is an apparel site started by former Magic artist and disgraced Fushigi pro Forrest Amell. Here are some of the cards he's made and crazy contact juggling skills on screen now. Follow Forrest on socials for more forbidden contact juggling tricks. But also go to the link below and get the red drop. You only have 1 week from when this video goes live to get your order in, and then it's gone. I've loved all the other drops from Void Monster so far, and I'm really excited to check out the card binder. So click the link below if you want to get in on this collection. Thanks to Void Monster for sponsoring the video. So what's the problem with the old solution? Having a completely separate win con from your theme usually leads to 2 options. Either a very definitive win con, or certain strategies are just unable to utilize this, because you can't separate the theme from winning. Let's start with the first one. What do I mean by a definitive win con? So obviously, anything technically can win you the game. You can win a game of Commander with a 1-1, as long as you can stall for 120 turns and keep the board clear. Realistically though, you're going to need more oomph than a 1-1. Combos are the most obvious example here, arguably the most definitive win con there is. You 100% win the game when it's executed. A tier below that would be big finishers like a Moonshaker Cavalry. With a reasonable number of creatures on board, this should finish the game. Or maybe an Omniscience with a reasonable amount of card draw on your deck. One tier below that are cards that are contextually I win cards. So an Impact Tremors can be incremental damage in a Norn the Wary deck. But in a Nihilist that is trying to build a ton of mana and aim to make a tremendous amount of tokens all at once, can set up Impact Tremors to be a card that basically ends the game in one go. A tier below that are cards that are very close to winning the game or require a bit more setup. You know, your Rise of the Dark Realms, Time Stretches, Ghalta Stampede Tyrant. These can easily become things that just win the game in the late game by themselves. Now, win cons on their face are good. You should try to win the game. I don't think that's really up for debate. The game needs to end sometime, and having a way to do that is really important. But definitive win cons on their face are also evil. They end the game. They stop players from doing their thing, even more so than removal does. Not only that, but sometimes you have a big crazy board state with lots of interesting interactions, and then one insurrection turns all of that into an easy win. How many times has a game ended like that for you, where one player just finds the I win card and that was it? Obviously this happens with combos, but the play patterns of a lot of these finishers are very combo-like. I could play 5 combo pieces in a row across 5 turns and win. Or I could play 4 creatures and a Crater Hoof across 5 turns and also win. The play pattern and the way the game ends are not super different. This is the divide between win cons that I want to focus on in this video. Definitive and variable. A variable win con is one that is a reasonable way to win the game, but might not do that all in one turn. Maybe it takes out one player, or maybe it chips in at all players each turn, something that will likely close out the game given a couple of turns. This can be a creature that scales up or just a really big one. It could be a value engine that puts stuff on the board or steals things. Maybe a mana sink that lets you grind out value turn after turn. And this is where your theme can come in. There's a big difference between an Elf Ball deck that has Triumph of the Hordes at the end and one that tries to chip in for damage over the course of multiple turns. The threat level is much lower. So when you have 8 elves in play, you are no longer one top deck away from winning, which means each opponent no longer has to scramble to find removal and stop you from untapping with a board. You might be asking, Con, isn't this just a worse version of Elf Ball? Without big definitive finishers, how can you win? Now, on some level, this is kinda true. If you are looking at the power of a commander deck in a vacuum, big game enders are threats because they do win games. But this is casual commander I'm talking about. Looking at power in a vacuum won't tell you the whole story. Yes, your deck on paper might be the strongest at the table, but if that is clear and obvious, won't this cause a 3v1 situation? And is your deck so much stronger than the rest of the table that 3 players worth of removal combined can't prevent you from winning? I doubt it. Assuming power levels are somewhat matched, I doubt you could actually win through that. If you are never the biggest threat, then you won't tank the interaction. Not only that, if your deck can't suddenly go from nothing to winning, then players will have you as a lower priority to attack and take out. Even if you sandbag your finishers, just knowing that you could play them and win is reason enough for some players to use removal on you. This is something I mentioned in my Everything is a Political Card video. Playing bad or worse cards is a political tool. Players will have a threat level of decks and cards in mind. This will change their behavior throughout the game. Being able to reassure players they don't need to spend every resource on you is probably good for your win rate. If you are looking at these 2 creatures in play, what are you going to hit with a Swords to Plowshares? And to be clear, I'm not talking about playing Hill Giant as your finisher. I'm still winning plenty of games. Let's talk about that. How exactly am I winning? Right now, one of my favorite examples would be Alexios with a Duelist Heritage in play. This will close out games pretty fast, especially in the later portions of the game if some players have already lost some life. Plus, this is a very satisfying way for my deck to win. The goal of the list is to force combat and amplify damage to my opponents, something Duelist Heritage is very good at, and Alexios is a force combat threat. Winning this way is very satisfying because I am using the synergies and themes of my deck to do so, and I didn't have the whole table shut me down. Another example would be my Esper control deck. Part of the reason this deck is very fun is because my polymorph target is the Unspeakable. It's not so threatening that players have to stop me from resolving my polymorph. They don't have to go so far out of their way to make sure I can't do my thing. If my polymorph threat was a Blightsteel Colossus, then my opponents would all have to go out of their way to make sure my polymorph did not happen, removing my tokens, countering my spell, or holding removal for the threat itself. But since my threat is the Unspeakable, players don't have that urgency, allowing me to regularly, consistently execute my deck's game plan. And I have won multiple games by attacking for lethal with the Unspeakable itself. Both of these are some of the most satisfying decks I have ever made. Every loss with these decks has still been pretty fun. I still got to do my thing. Each win feels perfect because the deck was able to do everything I envisioned and win with it. Okay, what if other players don't do this? Won't you fall behind if your deck doesn't have this I win button? No, just play removal. This is another reason why this style of deck building can lead to more wins. Going all in on some game ending piece only works if your deck is able to deploy that when nobody has interaction, meaning really early or later in the game when interaction has been spent. If you are not the fastest deck at the table and you don't have interaction, you will lose. Regardless of whatever else I'm talking about in this video, this is why interaction is important in every commander deck. You're not always going to be the fastest deck at the table. I've won a lot of games with Mind's Dilation. It generates a tremendous amount of value over the course of many turns, but it's also almost never the most relevant card to remove. And by the time the game has gone late enough, such that it is the scariest thing on the table, I've either already gotten enough value to win with it, or removal has already been spent. And it's a card that I don't have to sandbag as heavily as other win cons, because it's not an immediate threat. If I play it, someone else's scary doubling season is still a higher priority threat, even if they haven't cast it. So why get rid of the slow value engine? Okay, what about the second problem? Themes that don't work with this idea, like Voltron or Combo. For these types of decks, it is pretty hard to have a low-key, under-the-radar part of your theme that wins the game. You can play politics and decide who to attack and focus down the person that has the most definitive win con as a way to dodge removal. But if you're playing a Voltron or aggro deck, you might want to actually skip all this. You can still build your deck in a way where you are just there to set up for a win. If that doesn't bother you, you don't mind taking heat from the table, then just pack as much protection as you can and try and tank all the removal. There is fun to be had in playing a combo deck where everybody is gunning for you and you have to quickly find all your pieces or dodge interaction at the right time. This video is not me telling you that this is the only way to have fun playing Commander. That would be pretty silly. I personally like scrappy mid-rangey games where life totals get low and it is very tense. I like being able to execute my game plan. And I think a lot of players also resonate with this idea. Doing the thing is in the title and thumbnail because that is a common idea in casual Commander. Everyone wants to do their thing. What I'm saying in this video is if you want to do your thing, you don't have to decouple winning from that. You just need to play variable win cons. Lower the threat level of your deck, but you don't have to lower the power level. Playing enough card draw and removal and going for a slightly longer, grindier game is a reasonable way to still win with these variable win cons. And it is tremendously satisfying to do so. Or end the game decisively with a combo if you want. It's fine too. The divide between variable and definitive win cons personally has made my decks a lot more satisfying. I am more easily able to do my thing since I'm not a priority to my opponents, and each win has been tremendously satisfying because the deck's game plan came together. I really think trying this out can lead to more satisfying games of Commander, so I recommend testing out some variable thematic win cons in your decks today. Claymib asks, what are your favorite card sleeves that you own? Not the brand though. For a birthday some time ago, a friend of mine got me some gray Poupon sleeves. I'm a big fan of mustard. I just really like mustard. And I use these for my tokens and my commanders all the time. I love them. I think they're really cool. Thank you so very much for watching. If you want to ask questions like that or support me further, check out the Patreon link below. You can also get in the credits like my tier 3 patrons here.